instead of letting folks double work that kind of overtime. So that's, again, a management failure.
All right, we're going to come back to Melanie. I'm not trying to leave you out, Dana. Just trying to keep it to the subject matter. And the question is several about schools, and the question, I'm going to combine them here. The question is about how much of the local money is paid for by the state, and how much of that local money voted on is actually going to the local district. I'd like you to comment on that, the impact of Senate Bill 5 and State Issue 2 on tenure, if you can remember these. And then comment, there's a question around why Canton has built real big buildings and has no funds to operate them. I referenced the same type of thing happening in Huber Heights. So if you can remember all three of those, if not, I'll remind you, but they're all in the area of school policy. Melanie, wait.
Well, on the facility issue, a lot of districts will get their fundings or get significant help for, in addition to what they ask the locals to pay through the Schools Facilities Commission. So that piece is not in Senate Bill 5 in terms of the cost of operating. That's not a personnel of a contract issue. And you can help me, Seth, with the first two.
That's okay.
Tenure. Teacher tenure is protected continues to be protected under Senate Bill 5 for those who are currently tenured. And the concept is when you make the agreement to put someone in a tenured position, you keep it. It would be from the time that Senate Bill 5 would go into effect, no new tenured teachers would gain that position. So the concept of affecting tenure for those who are currently tenured, there is no effect. But there would be no additional tenured status given to teachers. And we're working backwards.
That's okay. The final question was about how much of the local money raised through local levies is paid. Does the state match that, or does they pay 100% more?
The school funding system is extraordinarily complex, and depends on what's called the phantom revenue. All kinds of factors factor into a particular district's what percentage they get from the state, what percentage stays with them locally, etc. The Department of Education has a very nice database. If you want to look at your particular district as to how much is state share, how much is local share, how much is federal share. And they would also, and you can just plug in, your district, and it gives you there's all types of fiscal data. If you go on to it's www.ode.state.oh.us, or you can email us at Roundtable. I'll give the link to you. And then you just go under frequently asked questions or the fiscal data, and it'll get you a link to what they call a data warehouse. There's all types of information, and you can get that question answered very specifically for your particular school district in that fashion.
If I can expand on that for a minute, I believe in Canton for sure. It's pretty much just the southeast portion of the state. A couple very small rural communities that are underneath a certain millage point that causes this phenomena that Melanie calls phantom revenue. So generally speaking, in most of the districts, and I did not look it up before I came, but Canton I believe would be one of those, when you vote on a local tax levy, there really is technically no match from the state. The state is already funding it. You've already met your local match requirements, so this is additional money that's coming in from the locality for the local schools. What the questioner may have been thinking of, and I'm going to make this quote caveat, is when building the school buildings, there was a state match depending on the wealth of the district. So depending on when it was that you all voted on that, there may have been a match from that, just to be totally clear with you, but for whoever had that question, I hope that helps. I'm going to come to you, Dana. What's the reality for Ohioans if State Issue 2 fails?
Well, I think the reality will be, fortunately, the Republicans still control the legislature and we still have Republican government. So I do think if we lose this battle on Issue 2 now, that the battle will go on. So that's part of it. If it doesn't pass, however, or if we can't retain SB 5, there will be a continual drift, especially in manufacturing companies. Those that can move will choose to move, on the service side, service sector, wherever there's people, there's services provided. So the service jobs will stay, probably their profits will be affected more so. But those companies that have the ability to move will probably continue to drift away.
Okay, excellent. Matt, I'm going to come to you in just a minute, but I would just remind folks that Americans for Prosperity, Dana's a volunteer participant. We don't, Republican, Democrat, I would point out that Matt has said both parties have been guilty of creating the spending phenomenon in Ohio, but I think you're right. If state issue 2 goes down, our position would be, and I think this could be borne out with facts, that will continue to drive a regulatory and tax environment that you'll see private sector jobs flee the state. You're absolutely correct. I would also say, just briefly, I would normally say this in my closing remarks, but if state issue 2 goes down, and these are the types of reforms you care for, I actually think that you're going to see a chilling of the legislature. Maybe not the governor, but of the legislature, because politics is politics. And there's going to be an effect that they will be not as likely to take on large reform again. And so if you're interested, this is an issue that everybody must be engaged on. Matt, I want to come to you. How has the NLRB weighed in on the bill, the referendum petition, and the issue of the wording? And how has President Obama himself, has he weighed in on the bill? This is a long question. Basically, are they going to police the honesty or lack thereof of this issue, and have they weighed in?
They haven't weighed in and they won't. NLRB really looks at the private sector union issues. The State Employment Relations Board is really what governs state public sector collective bargaining. The president has commented in a general political sense in support of the unions and therefore against issue 2. But I mean that's expected. So no big deal there. I'm not sure if that's it. I mean, it's not an issue for the NLRB. NLRB is too busy making sure Boeing can't open up a plant in South Carolina and making sure that everyone has to have posters in their workplace and making sure that that employers have a harder time fighting organization campaigns. So they're not worried about government workers at this point.
All right, Melanie, we're going to come to you. When public employees are sick, off sick, are they paid? Question from the audience.
It almost sounds too simple of a question. Yes, if they have accumulated sick days that they can bank on, they're paid for the time that they're off. That's it. Yeah. Am I missing something?
Nope, you're not missing anything. That's what the audience wanted to know. Matt, how many school employees aren't eligible for health care, if you have the data, are not eligible for health care, if you have it, and you know he has no idea, okay? I'm not...
If they're in the school district, they're all eligible for the health care plans, single or family plan. So I mean, I'm not sure what that question is aimed at.
That's not true, sir.
It is.
What do you mean it's not true?
There are guidelines in the contracts that guarantee health care at certain percentages if they work a minimum amount of hours.
Oh, of course, but that's okay. Yes, that's true. But if they're full-time workers in the school system, then they have access to the health care plans. So that's
Not all employees in school districts do.
yeah. Some are part-time.
There's also spousal coverage.
Right. But by and large, the plans are covering full-time employees. Right?
If the contract and the school district have agreed to that.
But it's not just, but there are lots of employees who actually aren't covered by the collective bargaining agreements. Those folks also are provided health care. It's not just about collective bargaining agreement health care offerings.
No, quite honestly, the administrators do have very nice health care programs.
Of course, they always do. They always have the best perks.
All right, let's go to if issue 2 fails, how will it affect the layoffs of state municipal employees? And I want to, these are questions from the crowd, so I want to go ahead and give a chance. Clearly, we didn't explain it well enough, I think, the first time around. Melody, would you like to comment on that again? If issue 2 fails, how will it affect layoffs of state municipal employees?
Well, I think it's going to depend on the circumstance for each municipality or township or the county governments as to what their fiscal health is. Obviously, the contracts that are in place when issue 2 takes effect would continue to stay in effect until they come to a natural termination date. Those are general, I think all of them in terms are 3-year contracts in terms of collective bargaining. But collective bargaining or not collective bargaining, if there is no requirement that there is a capacity to pay, and there is no concession in terms of the labor cost aspect of the agreement, then the local municipality is put into a position where if they can't save costs, then they cut jobs. I mean, it's just one is add an inverse relationship to the other. As costs go up, then the capacity to employ the same number of people goes down.
Right. I think this is an important one. Do state and civil service employees pay into Social Security? I can't quite read the completion of the question here. Can they collect retirement pensions after 25 years of service? I think what the questioner is asking is, can they get Social Security and their public pension?
Not in Ohio. Not in Ohio. If you're a full-time government worker, we opted out of Social Security way back when we had the chance. So you don't get that. I mean, if you work for government and you go to the private sector and you get the requisite quarters, you have to get Social Security, but you don't. Those quarters that you work in government are not applying to your Social Security calculation. Ohio opted out of that way back when I think it was like 1938, or I don't remember the exact year that happened. What was the other piece of it? Oh.
And I guess I would just qualify and say that there is examples where, Matt, agree with me or tell me I'm wrong, but where you have an employee that has contributed to both systems.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, those people could get both if they contributed to both systems, right?
Quarters eligibility, yeah.
Right.
And for the pension eligibility issue, it really depends on which pension or which unit of government you're in. Some it's you vest after 5 years of service, some it's 15, and so it all depends. That means obviously if you retire, you're going to get a teeny tiny pension. Like if you work for 5 years and then you stop working for government, you're vested and you get a little teeny pension. That little teeny pension is actually what the pensions use to mislead folks and say, look, the average pension is only $23,000 a year. They're including all of those people that only work for a short time but vested in a pension, just not full 30 year. The 30-year number is much higher. It's about $39,000 for state workers.
Okay. I think that was the last question that we had for the night, but sit in your seats just one further moment. We're about to pass the offering plate and have a call of invitation to convert. Thank you. I finally got a spontaneous joke. Hey. Actually, we do just have a few final minutes. I want to give Ralph a chance to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to thank you, first of all, for coming tonight. I know it's tough to sit through a lot of policy discussion. We do that too little as Americans. We need to do more of it. We need to think through these issues more clearly. In many respects, we're in the position we're in today because we, as citizens, have not been perhaps as engaged as we should have been. Thank you. I want to also encourage you to fill this out. You should have received one. It was on the table, or you were given one as you walked in the door, I hope. If not, we'll make sure we get one to you. There's an opportunity here to sign the petition saying that you support State Issue 2 and that you want to help educate others in the community regarding the issue. We hope that tonight has helped convince you, or perhaps even given you more courage if you were with us already on the issue, to speak more educatedly to your neighbors and friends about this issue. We'd like to know that. We'd like to know that so that we can keep you informed of issues that are going on with this issue across the state. If you're not so convinced that this is something you care to support, then please take it home anyway and be our guest at putting it on your dartboard and think of us every time you throw a dart at it. There is a phone bank available here in Canton. Americans for Prosperity is part of the coalition seeking to pass State Issue 2 on November 8th. Contact Ralph if you'd like to be a part of that phone bank. We would highly encourage you to do that. If you'd like to make those same calls from home, there's an ability to do that through Americans for Prosperity as well. You can go to americansforprosperity.org/Ohio, or just Google Americans for Prosperity Ohio. There's a place on our website to sign up to do calls from home. You'll be provided a script and so forth to do that as well. I just, before I turn it back over to Ralph, want to say this. This has been a difficult campaign. It's going to continue to be a difficult campaign. We obviously would encourage folks to vote yes on State Issue 2. The wording of the language on the ballot is going to be something to the effect of, shall the bill remain law, okay? So a yes vote is for those of you who care to see the reforms explained tonight become law. A no vote is for those of you who do not like the reforms you heard about tonight. So we're encouraging you to vote yes on State Issue 2 on November 8th, and we hope you take your friends and neighbors to do that. This is an issue that I firmly believe is going to be won or lost